In this demonstration, you're going to see how to configure and manage group policy settings. So we start off by opening the Group Policy Management console from the Windows Administrative Tools menu. I expand the Contoso domain, and I'm going down to the Group Policy Objects container. I create a new Group Policy Object, and it's called Contoso Standards. I click OK. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to edit that policy. So I right-click on the Group Policy Object, I select Edit. This opens the Group Policy Management Editor. I'm going into the User Configuration node, Policies node, System node, and the first policy I'm configuring is Prevent Access to Registry Editing Tools. I enable that policy, and then I click Apply, and then OK. Next, I expand the Control Panel node. I select Personalization. I then select Screensaver Timeout. I enable the policy and I set it to 600 seconds or 10 minutes. I click Apply, I click OK. I also open the Password Protect the Screensaver policy and turn that to Enabled. I click OK. I close the Group Policy Management Editor, and back in the Group Policy Management console, I right-click on the domain level and link the group policy I just created called Contoso Standards to the domain. I click OK. Next, I switch across to a Windows 10 computer and sign in as a user Thai. This Windows 10 computer is part of that domain, so I'm going to check the policy impact. I open up Control Panel, and the first thing I do is I view the screensaver settings. So I see if I can change the screensaver when logged on as Thai. And we see here that all the screensaver settings are actually greyed out, meaning I can't change any of them. I click Cancel. The next thing I do is I try and run a registry editing tool. I run regedit. I click OK, and I see that registry editing has been disabled by your administrator, which is the impact of the policy applying to this particular Windows 10 computer. I sign out of the computer. I switch back to my administrative server. I go to the Seattle OU and I create a GPO and link it to that particular OU. That GPO is called Seattle Application Override. I select Seattle Application Override and I edit that GPO. I go into Administrative Templates again. I go into Personalization again, like I did previously, and I go to the Screensaver Timeout policy. I open that policy and set it to Disabled. I click Apply, I click OK. I close the Group Policy Management Editor. Now at the Seattle level, I go to my Group Policy Inheritance tab and I verify that the Group Policy Object, Seattle Application Override, that I just applied at the OU level, overrides the default domain policy and also overrides the Contoso Standards policy. I then go to the Seattle Application Override policy, and I'm going to configure the security filtering for that policy to ensure that it only applies to specific users and specific computers. When I do this, I get a warning saying removing the authenticated users group may prevent processing of policy. In this case, I'm going to add specific security principles which will enable policy processing for those specific users and computers. So I click Add. I enter the user group, Seattle branch users. I check the names to make sure I've typed it correctly. I click OK. I then click Add again, and I type in the computer name SEACL1, which is my Seattle client Windows 10 computer. I check the name. I click OK. What I do then is I select the Group Policy Results page, right-click on that, and run the Group Policy Results wizard that allows me to calculate the policies that apply to computers and users. Here, I select the computer, SEACL1. I check the name. I click OK. I click Next. And then I specify that I want to check it for Contoso Thai. and I click Next. I click Next, and the results wizard runs to calculate the group policy result. So I get the result and I scroll down here, and what I can see on this report is that the applied GPOs are Contoso standards and the Seattle application override policy. So the appropriate policies are applying, as well as, of course, the domain policy. What I'm also interested in is the policies in the administrative templates area and control panel personalization. So I click Show. So I see here which policy is winning in terms of policy application. So the screensaver timeout policy applied at the OU level disables that setting, and that wins. The password protect the screensaver, which is only applied through the Contoso standards policy, wins because there's no setting in the Seattle application override policy. In this demo, I showed you about configuring and applying group policy objects in Windows Server 2019.